Now, on some of my newsletters, I put out if anyone had any questions they'd like me to tackle, then to get back to me with a question. And I've got a question back from a guy called Vince. So, hello Vince, and thank you very much for sending in your question. What Vince says is, my challenge is knee and lower back pain. He carries on, I've practiced SKA style Shotokan in the past, and they taught us to put 60% of the weight on the front leg in a Zenko Sadachi forward stance and push the lower abdomen pelvis forward with tension for Kime. Having read a lot of Shihan Yukata and Jesse in camp, I have now stopped doing that and put an even amount of weight on both legs, or maybe a bit more weight on the back leg. I tighten my abs for Kime, but I don't bother pushing the pelvis forward. Is there any further advice on improving knee and lower back function? Well, I'm going to say, as someone who's had a lot of knee problems myself, I can sympathise with you very much, Vince, so I know it can affect your karate. What I would say, Shihan Yukata, I've got a lot of respect for the guy. Most Japanese instructors of that age group, they don't like to rock the boat or challenge the conventional wisdom of the day. Shihan Yokata does. He questions everything, he exposes a lot of the myths, and he's a breath of fresh air for a Japanese instructor. I've got a lot of respect for the guy. Jesse Camp does a lot of good work as well, exposing stuff and giving you a different perspective on karate. His website is karatebyjesse.com, and again, that's recommended to have a look at that. Okay, as for putting the weight on the front leg, well, Funakoshi himself said formal stances are for beginners. More advanced people should use natural stances. So Vince, I'm assuming you're reasonably high grade here, and this is the way that your training is supposed to go. Use a more natural stance that kind of suits you better, rather than trying to use the formal stances. So that's good. I agree with you taking that action. Also, you say you no longer push the pelvis forward. You still tense the abdomen muscles, but you no longer push the pelvis forward. Again, I agree with that as well. I'll just put this down. What I would, the way I see people is lightly tuck the buttocks in, okay? That way it helps to straighten the spine. Lightly tuck the buttocks in, keep the chin in as well, but it's lightly tucked in. You're not forcing the pelvis forward, you're not forcing the chin in, okay? Just lightly tuck, chin, buttocks, and that helps you keep your spine straight, okay? And that will help your the function of your spine, okay? Now, for those of you that remember the original Karate Kid films, I had done this in a previous video, so I'm covering a bit of ground that I've already done. You may remember this from the second original Karate Kid film. Now, this basically represents your spine, your shoulders, and of course, your arms. When the spine is nice and straight, everything, it just flows, nice and easy. When your spine is bent, okay, when your spine is bent, or if you're leaning, you can do it, but it's nowhere near as easy. So, one of my pieces of advice, don't push the pelvis forward, just lightly tuck the buttocks in, lightly tuck the chin in, so you've got a nice straight spine, and then when you want to move, everything moves together, okay, so you get a whole body movement, everything moves nice and easy, right? As for still tensing the abdomen, when you on the completion of a technique, I would say take that out, okay? We're always taught to breathe diaphragmatically, or we should be taught to breathe from the diaphragm. Now, when we breathe in from the diaphragm pushes down, okay, as we breathe in, it engages the core muscles. Now, it's the core muscles that give us the movement, not the abdomen muscles around the outside, okay, on the front. You want the core muscles engaged, okay, so you breathe in. Now, when you engage the core muscles, you should feel like a pressure inside, not a tension, okay, big difference there. You're not looking for tension here. It's just a feeling of a pressure. And when you can kind of feel that pressure inside, try and move from there. And you can find you get that rapid rotation of the movements, okay, which, okay, we consider ourselves a linear style, but at the end of the technique, there's a rotation, okay? So we still got the rotational parts to most of nearly all our techniques. So again, try and get that coming from the core muscles. The abdomen, that doesn't really add anything to it, okay? Now again, in one of my earlier videos where I've talked about Kime, and I'll put a link in the write-up below this video. I talk about snapping a belt or a towel. Now, the Okinawas used to say, use your body like a whip. When I whip this towel, at what point does that towel become tense? It doesn't. It never becomes tense. Okay? At the climax of it, it's stretched out and it's taut. It's not tense. It's taut. It's stretched out. And that is what we're looking for. Okay? That's what our karate technique should be like. So when I do a punch or any other technique, I'm stretching out. Okay? If I tense, you tense, you tend to pull things back into the body. I want the power going that way. I don't want to tense and have my arm coming back into my body. I want to stretch and push the power through. So stretching through is more effective than tensing, whatever part of the body it is, okay? When your kind of waist moves, okay, and the power is transferred through the rest of the body, any tension in there, tension creates stillness, okay? It creates stiffness, it creates stillness, and it resists movement. If you look at a tennis player when they're kind of hitting the ball, they don't hit the ball and go and tense up, do they? They go right through. They use a rapid exhalation, the same as we do, but they use that for powerful movement, not for powerful tension. Okay, it's an important difference. Like a golfer, they do the same thing. They kind of exhale sharply. You often hear golfers grunt as they okay, and again they use it for powerful movements. They don't go no, they don't tense up as they hit the ball. No, they go right the way through it. So I would say take out the tension. Okay, another thing, so I have covered in one of my previous videos on Kime, but I'll just go through it again. When you hit something, there's 2 points you want to think about. There's a point of contact, then as you drive your fist into the target, you come to a point of completion. Now the damage is done between those 2 points. From the contact to the completion, that's where the damage is done. If I contact there, drive through, and then I go, what's it doing? What is that tension doing on the end? Okay, the damage is done driving through. Okay, that's where you need your power, and you need the power to be a moving power, not a stationary tension. Whether it's in the arm, whether it's in the stomach, in the abdomen, it doesn't do anything for your technique. Okay. The last thing I'll say, particularly for the knee, okay, I'm going to have to change the camera angle for this. Right, a lot of times in karate, they've taught us to push that knee out. That gives us stability, okay, push that knee out. I'm sorry, but as someone who, like yourself, has got bad knees, that is not good for your knee, okay. It's done in horse stance as well. Push the knees out, for stability. No, it's not for stability. It's a really bad idea. Because as you push the knees out, you're putting lateral pressure on the knee joints, okay? You don't want lateral pressure on the knee joints. It's not good for your knee joints, and you're going to mess your knees up over a period of years. Which sounds like you have done and I have done, okay? So really what you want is, when you stand or walk normally, your hip joints, your knee joint and your ankle joint, they're all in a nice straight line. Even when you bend it, they still stay in a straight line when faced from the front. So when you're in a stance, if I take a horse stance, then looking from the front, it should still be a nice straight line. It shouldn't be bowed outwards. I mean, from there, it's not in a straight line. Okay, there it is in a straight line. It's more stable. It's kind of on my knees, and it's a lot more functional. Okay, it's the same with the forward stance. I don't want to be pressing it out that way. I'll do it towards the camera. It's the same when I'm in a forward stance. Hip, knee, ankle, all in a straight line. You don't have to go down in a very deep stance. A lot of Shotokan does like to have deep stances. If you look at early photographs of Funakoshi, he was never in a very deep stance. Most Okinawan karate doesn't do deep stances. The deep stances started when he went to Japan. Okay, so again, make sure you've got that alignment. The other thing is when you walk, your natural walking position is heel, ball of the foot, particularly on the big toe side. The little toes go down for balance. Then as you push off, the heel comes up, and the part you push off is actually from the big toe. The little toes come up first, and the big toe side is where you push off from. So looking at the bottom of the foot, that is the power line. That's the power part. Okay, there. Not the whole ball of the foot. Okay, you're pushing off this side by the big toe. Now, when you push your knees out, you put the pressure on the little toe side. What's that doing for you? Nothing, okay? It's taking the emphasis away from your natural power position. When you bring the knees back into alignment, so all the joints are straight, your weight comes over the base of the big toe again, and that is your body's natural power line to move from. Right, so I hope that answers your question, Vince. Thank you very much for sending in the question, and I hope you don't mind me making this video and sharing it with a wider audience. But I thought it was useful because you raised some interesting questions. If you've enjoyed this video, please like or subscribe below, and leave your feedback. Thank you very much.